Since the early 1900s, Hollywood has brought many different versions of Wyatt Earp's life to film. And while not all of these portrayals are performances for the ages, we're always happy to see an Earp on screen. Here are the best portrayals of Wyatt Earp on screen, ranked from worst to best. In 2017, Alex Cox, writer and director of cult classics such as Sid and Nancy and Repo Man, released Tombstone Rashomon, a bizarre sci-fi western about a group of filmmakers who somehow travel back in time and end up at the OK Corral after the infamous shootout. Cox borrowed from Akira Kurosawa's 1950 classic Rashomon, in that the survivors of the gunfight each tell a different version of what happened to the film crew. Cox attempted to pay for his vision through crowdfunding platform Indiegogo.
My name is Wyatt Earp. My present profession is saloon keeper.
While HuffPost asked about his inspiration for the movie, Cox said, "Oh, I don't really know. I've been thinking about doing the OK Corral story for a very long time. I guess it came as a result of seeing Rashomon. Such a good film and such a good way of approaching a story of which there's more than one version. It just seems appropriate." But then you get into a situation where you're trying to raise money for a film called Tombstone Rashomon from the general public. How many people know what Rashomon is? 1 in 1,000, maybe? The film received tepid reviews from the few critics who knew of its existence. Adam Newbury played Wyatt Earp, a performance that took a backseat to the zaniness of the plot, and ends up as the worst and weirdest portrayal on screen of the iconic lawman. This is Val Kilmer's second appearance in a Wyatt Earp film, and this time he's playing the Old West legend himself. The direct-to-video Wyatt Earp's Revenge goes back and forth between Wyatt as an older man, played by Kilmer, and as a younger man, played by Sean Roberts. While in San Francisco, Wyatt tells a reporter a very vivid and very historically inaccurate tale about how he and his posse of men went after Spike Kennedy, the killer of his lover, Dora Hand. Some critics refer to Kilmer's performance of an aging Wyatt as tired. This was surprisingly one of the better reviews of the movie, and Roberts' younger version of Wyatt is played with one single expression of his face throughout most of the film. One of the highlight performances is that of Wilson Bethel as a young Doc Holliday, whose take on the character is very maniacal to say the least. Wichita is director Jacques Tourneur's retelling of the early, pre-Dodge City part of Wyatt Earp's career. The film was notable for being Allied Artists' first release in CinemaScope and a prequel to John Ford's My Darling Clementine. According to Great Western Movies, actor Joel McCrea was more popular than John Wayne at the time of filming.
My name's Earp. Wyatt Earp.
In Wichita, McCrea plays a stern young Wyatt Earp. Some criticized the casting of McCrea because in real life the actor was 50 years old at the time of filming, and Wyatt was much younger while working as a policeman in Wichita. Many consider Hour of the Gun to be director John Sturges' best movie. James Garner plays Wyatt Earp, and Jason Robards plays Doc Holliday in the sequel to Gunfight at the OK Corral. Hour of the Gun goes into the little-discussed third act of Wyatt's life, showing the paranoia and moral decline of the lawman. The film was ahead of its time and took many risks when it came to its plot and climax, which led to poor reception during its initial release, but much more relevance and appreciation many years later. According to TCM, the proffering of a fallen king, a hero weakened and ultimately destroyed by desire and revenge, was unprecedented in the 60s Western film genre. AMC notes that Garner would later portray Earp again in 1988, this time in the TV movie Sunset. Stuart Lake sold the rights to his book Wyatt Earp, Frontier Marshal, to the Fox Film Company for $7,500 and loyally split $6,750 with Wyatt's wife, Josephine Marcus, according to History.net. Frontier Marshal was the first movie based on Lake's famous biography that made Wyatt into an American hero. The protagonist, played by George O'Brien, is based on Earp, but uses the name Michael Wyatt. O'Brien would later work closely with director John Ford in many movies and became a Navy captain during World War II. John Ford would eventually make the Wyatt Earp film My Darling Clementine in 1946, which was based upon the second adaptation of Frontier Marshal. An even earlier portrayal of Wyatt on the big screen was Burt Lindley, during a very brief scene in the 1923 silent movie Wild Bill Hickok. While Frontier Marshal isn't the best portrayal of Wyatt on screen, it was the first to give him significant on-screen time, and credit to his name as the legendary lawman of the Wild West. Released in 1939, Frontier Marshal was the second version of the film of the same name released in 1934. It was also the first movie centered on the life of Wyatt to use his real name. Wyatt was portrayed by actor Randolph Scott.
You're under arrest. Put down those guns.
According to Great Western Movies, Scott plays a strong, clean-cut Wyatt Earp who never makes a move on his love interest Sarah, played by Nancy Gates. Frontier Marshal would later serve as the basis of John Ford's 1946 remake My Darling Clementine. The film was known for its ensemble cast and acting that dazzled viewers. Cesar Romero also enchants with his dark portrayal of Doc Holliday. Released in 1971, Doc is a very unique addition to the film renditions of Wyatt Earp because it made a statement about the Vietnam War's impact on America. Screenwriter Pete Hamill made this apparent connection explicit, saying, "We were continuing to fight in Vietnam because of some peculiar notions of national macho pride. Indochina was Dodge City, and the Americans were some collective version of Wyatt Earp." As HistoryNet notes, the film was known for being one of the dirty westerns popular in the early 1970s for presenting a crude, realistic portrayal with dirty, weathered sets and costumes. The film was also noted for its revisionism, rewriting the characters fans were used to seeing in previous Wyatt Earp movies. Paul Mavis of DVD Talk described Harris Yulin's version of Wyatt as a cold-blooded Nixonian politician who doles out smarmy, unconvincing platitudes about making Tombstone a better place to live for families, all the while plotting and scheming to take over the town and bleed it dry. Gunfight at the OK Corral was John Sturges' first feature film based on Wyatt Earp. Legendary actors Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas star as Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. According to the Mark C. Carnes book, Past Imperfect, History According to the Movies, the film focused more on the psychology of the relationship between Doc and Earp, and stayed closer to historical fact than previous Wyatt screen adaptations. AMC notes that while the cast was brilliant, the movie's true star will always be the tour de force shootout that gives the movie its name. The elaborately staged scene took a reported 44 hours to film for a mere 6 minutes of screen time. Lancaster's portrayal of Wyatt is considered by some critics as underplayed and reactionary to his supporting cast. When it comes to Kirk Douglas playing Doc Holliday, John G. Nettles of Pop Matters writes, "Douglas, on the other hand, is clearly having fun, even if no one else is. The flamboyant Doc Holliday is the Hamlet of the Western, a role with so many layers and shades that whoever plays it inevitably dominates the film." The Life and Legend of Wyatt Earp was the first adult Western on television and became a top 10 rated series, reports the Los Angeles Times. Actor Hugh O'Brian became a household name and earned Emmy nominations for his portrayal of the OK Corral icon. The series followed Wyatt from the first episode, where he becomes Marshal of Ellsworth, Kansas, to later episodes where the lawman moves to Dodge City. Actor Hugh O'Brian took the role seriously and spent lots of time developing the character of Wyatt for the ABC series. One of his most proud achievements as Wyatt was developing the fast draw the lawman was known for.
It's important to draw fast and get off the first shot, but it's much more important to have your bullet go where you want it to go.
The actor told the Archive of American Television in 2005, "I didn't want to force them into having to cut away whenever that happened. I wanted it to be realistic." Kevin Costner stars as Wyatt Earp in a 3-hour-plus biographical film that aims to cover the entirety of Wyatt's life. According to the Morning Call, Costner had approached director Lawrence Kasdan about making a miniseries on Earp. Kasdan turned down the idea of a miniseries and opted to make a full-length film about the Wild West lawman instead. Kasdan explained the significance of Costner's performance, saying, To me, great acting is the closest you can get to the truth of the moment, and I don't think there's anyone in the world who understands how to act for a camera better than Kevin Costner does. Wyatt Earp is a major piece of acting from Costner. He goes from real youth and innocence to a tragically earned wisdom. He plays it perfectly, calibrates it just so, and never once begs for your sympathy. The film was more historically accurate than most others based on Wyatt Earp. According to Mark C. Carnes in Past Imperfect, History According to the Movies, Kevin Costner claimed his version of Earp was constructed, quote, within the bounds of historical fact. However, many critics complained that the film focused too much on retelling the accuracy of Wyatt's life and not about what made him so iconic. Stephen Hunter of the Baltimore Sun said the film was, quote, a myth in search of a man. When comparing 1993's Tombstone to 1994's Wyatt Earp, more Western fans and critics have chosen Tombstone as the better film. It was indeed a gunslinging showdown between both movies, with Tombstone also winning at the box office by earning $56 million, more than double Wyatt Earp's earnings. Tombstone focused on more than just Wyatt Earp's character, and the film wasn't afraid to take artistic liberties that weren't too distracting from a realistic portrayal of Wyatt Earp. The film contained an ensemble cast, with Val Kilmer's iconic part as Doc Holliday at the center.
I beg to differ, sir. We started a game we never got to finish.
Kurt Russell put a lot of work into the character of Wyatt, and even more behind the camera. Kilmer told The Hollywood Reporter, "I have such admiration for Kurt, as he basically sacrificed lots of energy that would have gone into his role to save the film. Everyone cared, don't get me wrong, but Kurt put his money where his mouth was. I watched Kurt sacrifice his own role and energy to devote himself as a storyteller, even going so far as to draw up shot lists to help our replacement director, George Cosmatos, who came in with only 2 days prep." My Darling Clementine is one of director John Ford's best films, focusing on Wyatt Earp as he helped restore law and order by bringing civilization to the Wild West. According to Britannica, My Darling Clementine was one of the first movies to elevate Wyatt Earp to mythical status and helped establish the legend of the gunfight at the OK Corral. The screenplay may have been historically inaccurate, but audiences were treated to a masterclass in directing by Ford and a cinematic experience that painted a close enough picture of the real Wyatt Earp. TCM notes that Ford concentrated on the smaller, mundane moments of Earp's life, such as his visits to the barber or his attraction to the new woman in town. This use of filmmaking also explains why Criterion selected the shot of Wyatt casually leaning back on his chair, overseeing the town in a subtle and very concentrated way for its cover. Last but not least, Ford does the iconic shootout at the OK Corral just right. These are the reasons why we had to go with My Darling Clementine as the best film portrayal ever of Wyatt Earp. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more grunge videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.